Hey YouTube, full throttle here with a new video with a special guest, my friend Will.
Hey.
He's gonna show off his Altmile Brave deck. So off to you.
Hey YouTube, it's me, Will. I'm here with my Altmile Brave deck. Now I've been playing this deck a lot, and it's been pretty good. It's definitely one of the better Royal Paladin decks out there. This and Thingsaber Blaster. But let's get right into the deck. So my starter, I run Stinius as my starter. Now, Stinius is a Forerunner with the Generation Break 1 Brave ability. Now, for those of you who don't know, Brave goes off when you have 3 or less cards in your hand. Now, what he does is you put him into the soul, you choose one of your units, and it gets +5 until the end of the turn, and then at the very end of the turn, you bounce that unit back to your hand. So, if you're low on hand, and you have a perfect guard, for example, you can call out a perfect guard, and then you can bounce that back to your hand while gaining offense and defense, so that means you're getting it back to your hand. And you can also recycle units that call from the deck, so you can use them more than once. That and putting him into the soul is very good for the deck, because this deck uses a lot of soul. And the reason I'm not running Milius is because Milius uses counterblasts, and the deck is very hard-pressed for counterblasts. Let's go on to the triggers. We run 4 heal triggers, standard. We run 4 Belinus, because it's an Altmile Brave deck, and you have to run Belinus. For those of you who don't know Belinus, what he does is, when he's on rear guard, when your Vanguard attacks, if your Vanguard has Altmile in its name, you put him into the soul, you draw a card, and your Vanguard gets +5,000. So it's soul, it's hand, and it's really good. And then we run 4 Flogel. We're not running Blaster Blade in the deck. She's just another crit. And Hollow Breath Dragon. So 12 crit, 4 heal. Now the reason I'm not running any draws is because this deck, it's a Brave deck, and Brave, you need very small hand. So yeah. Now, let's move on to the grade 1s. Okay, for the grade 1s, we're running 4 Holy Knight Guardian. She's our PGG. We run her over the Brave one because this deck uses a lot of counterblasts, and she is one of our only countercharge engines, so very important. We run 4 Stride Fodder. Want to be able to stride consistently. The deck kind of dies a bit if you can't stride consistently. We're running 4 Salium, and Salium's really good because his skill is, well, his first skill, not super important, Generation Break 1 Brave. If you have a Vanguard with Altmile in its name, it gets +3. That's useful at times, but that's not amazing. The reason we run this card at 4 is his second skill, Continuous. While he's in the deck, if you have a Vanguard with Altmile in its name, he becomes a grade 2. So cards that would normally be able to only call out other grade 2s, now you can call out this guy, and he can be a booster. And finally, we run 2 copies of Knight of Reform Peer. Now, what Peer does is Generation Break 1, when your other grade 2 unit is placed on rear guard, if you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Altmile in its name, you choose 2 units in his column, and they both get +2. So he gets +2, and the unit in front of him gets +2. So that's really good for hitting really, really large numbers. All right, so let's move on to the grade 2s. So for the grade 2s, we're running 1 Benny Zale. Now, Benny Zale, what he does is Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1, Generation Break 1. When he's placed on rear guard, if you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Altmile in its name, you search your deck for a grade 2, call it to rear guard, and that gets +2. Well, the grade 2, that's not named Benny Zale, but we're only running 1. So he's really good for big combos when you want to like replace rear guards that have already attacked. That, and he's also really good for field consistency. So yeah. And so next we're running 2 Knight of Fragment. Knight of Fragment, if you have 2 or more grade 2 rear guards, so him included, he gets plus 2,000, and when his attack hits, you can countercharge 1 and soul charge 1. And I said before, this deck uses a lot of counterblasts and a lot of soul, so he's very good for the deck. So next we're running 2 copies of Starlight Violinist. Now, Starlight Violinist is basically just Benny Zale, except Starlight Violinist is when she's placed on either Vanguard or Rearguard, and it's not Generation Break. Now, the reason I run 2 Starlight Violinists and only 1 Benny Zale is because Starlight Violinist is really good for helping out late game combos, while Benny Zale is more of like a one-off thing. Now we run 3 copies of Knight of Twin Sword. Knight of Twin Sword, Generation Break 1, Counterblast 1. When he attacks a Vanguard and he's boosted, search your deck for a grade 2 card not named Knight of Twin Sword and call it to Rearguard. Twin Sword is very good. It's very helpful for your final turn push. So you attack with Twin Sword. You call out another. You call it Starlight Violinist, for example. Starlight Violinist calls out a Knight of Fragment, and then bam, you just have 2 more attacks. And last but not least, we have 3 copies of Counteroffensive Knight Suleiman. Now, what his first skill is when he attacks a Vanguard, Brave. When he attacks a Vanguard, if you have a Vanguard with Altmile in its card name, it gets +3, so he becomes a 12k attacker, which is very good. And the second ability, which is really good, is Generation Break 1, Counterblast 1, choose a card from your hand, discard it. So that can help you get into Brave. You search your deck for 1 grade 2 card, not named Suleiman, and call it to Rearguard, and that unit gets +2. Oh, it only goes off if you have an Altmile Vanguard. So again, another good card for your final turn, for your final push, like calling out cards and replacing them with cards that have already attacked. So now on to the grade 3s. All right. So for the grade 3s, we're running 4 copies of Blue Sky Knight Altmile. Of course, it's an Altmile Brave deck. You have to run Altmile. Certain strides require you to have an Altmile Vanguard, Altmile Heart, and other cards that I've said before require you to have an Altmile Vanguard. So of course we're running 4. So for those of you who don't know, Altmile's Generation Break 2 ability is during your turn, all your units in the front row get +5. You're basically never going to end up using that skill because you want to consistently stride every turn. And his second ability, which you use sometimes but not a whole lot, is Counterblast 1. During your turn, when your G unit strides on top of this card, you can call up to 2 cards from your hand to the Rearguard, and then you can choose up to 2 cards, and they get +5. You're not really going to be using this as often as you would think, because hey, +10, that's really good. But this deck uses a lot of counterblasts, and you want to save them for the late game. So next, we run 3 Model Knight Orahan. Now, what he does is his Generation Break 1 is Brave. All your units with the Brave ability in your front row get +3. Now, he is not your ideal ride target. Your ideal ride target is Altmile. But the reason we run him is for his second ability is Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1. When he's placed on Vanguard, search your deck for the top 5 cards, and you search for 1 card with the Brave ability. So, for example, you don't have anything to stride with. So you Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1, look at the top 5 cards of your deck for a Brave ability. He has the Brave ability in its name, so you could stride from there. That and he's pretty good to stall until you get Altmile. And lastly, we run 1 Sanctuary Guard Dragon. Now, Sanctuary Guard Dragon, this is the tech card in the deck. So Sanctuary Guard Dragon, what he does is he limit break. During your turn, he gets plus 3,000 for each grade 1 or less card on your field. And then his on-ride ability is choose a card from your hand, discard it. When it's placed on Vanguard, search your deck for 1 grade 1 card and call it to rear guard. So that's good because 1, you get to filter out your hand, make it smaller for Brave, and for example, you can call out a Peer. Excuse me. And Peer is really good. Helps you hit big numbers. And Sanctuary Guard, in the deck we are going to be running 1 Sanctuary Guard regularly. And so if you ride Sanctuary Guard and you don't see an Altmile, you have a good on-ride turn and you have a good first stride turn, which will let you stall long enough for you to get Altmile so you can get the deck back on track. All right, so on to the strides. All right, so first off for the strides, we're running Holy Dragon Sanctuary Guard regularly. Now, you're only going to want to stride him if you were forced to ride Sanctuary Guard as your Vanguard. So, and he's not bad. He's actually very good if you have Sanctuary Guard Dragon.
He's broken.
During your turn, if you have a heart with Sanctuary Guard in its name, all your units in the front row get +3 for each grade 1 or less of your rear guards. So that's basically almost a guaranteed +9 to your front row. So that's really good for a first stride. So next, we're running 4 copies of Aerial Divine Knight Altmile. Aerial Divine Knight Altmile, what he does is you stride, you flip a copy over. So it's placed on Vanguard. If you flip a copy over, he gets all your units in the front row get plus 3,000. Then, if the number of face-up cards in your G zone is 2 or more, search your deck for 1 grade 2 card, call it to rear guard, and that unit gets +5. So that's good. That's good. So if you were forced to G guard the previous turn, then you're gonna be able to use this. You'll be able to use the skill. But we run 4 of him because not only is he really good, he also combos with the next card on our list. We have Transcending the Heavens Altmile. Now he's the finisher. He is the final turn killer, whatever. He's good. He's good. So what he does is counterblast 1 and choose a copy of Aerial Divine Knight Altmile. No, sorry, not a copy of Aerial Divine Knight Altmile. Choose any copy, any card in your G zone and turn it face up. And then he gets the ability that when he attacks, you can search your deck for, if you have a heart with Altmile in its name, you can search your deck for one grade 2 card and call it to rear guard, and that unit gets +5. And your entire front row gets +2,000 for each face-up copy of him in your G zone. So for example, you stride him, you use his skill, turn a copy face over. You have two face over, and then if you stride him, you choose another copy. That's +6,000 to your entire front row. And then if you do him again, you flip another copy over. It's +8,000 to your entire front row. So he's definitely your finisher of the deck. Now we're going on to G guards. We run 1 Dismal because there are certain rear guards in this deck that you really want to protect. And we're running 3 copies of Holy Dragon Laser Guard Dragon. The reason we're not running Screw You is because the deck already has very limited hand size, and you don't want to use up even more of your hand if you don't have to. That end, you're basically guaranteed to have a grade 2 card on the field, so you're definitely gonna get Laser Guard off. And finally, running 4 copies of Divine Knight of Rainbow Blockade Clotinus. So what he does is Brave, Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1. You choose a copy of him, turn him face up in the G zone. And so you search your deck for the same number of grade 2 cards as the number of face up copies of him in your G zone, and call them to rear guard. And then finally, until the end, and then if the number of rear guards you have is 5 or more, he gets plus 10,000 and a crit. So so if you don't have the resources to use Transcending the Heavens Altmile, then you use him to hit for very big numbers and big crit. And you also use him in the late game when you're down in field, or you just need like a boost. So yeah, that was my Altmile Brave deck. Hope you all enjoy, and subscribe to Peter's channel. All right, this is Will signing off.